Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industry. Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 122 of the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charli Matthews, and I'm so excited that you are here with us. Thanks for choosing us, for listening every Monday when this comes out. Leave us a rating and review or subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and then it will pop up every Monday when we have a new episode. Mention us at Empowering Pumps or using that hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. This week for me has been so rewarding. I went to vacation Bible school and was able to do like this imagination station with my daughter as a helper. And so if you've ever done VBS, Vacation Bible School, it is intense and it is a lot of children. And I definitely was outside my comfort zone, but I embraced it. I learned a lot. And I am thankful for that experience. I am going to miss everybody this week at ESA. And so it's ESA week. And that hashtag is ESA22. They are in St. Louis, Missouri this week. Look for Vince, say hello to him. And I really want to thank him for being at this event. I will miss everyone. Speaking of events, our event coming up in November is Epic 2022. Check out that hashtag. And if you haven't yet, there's a little bit more time. If you wanted to be a speaker, if you want to submit a call to papers before the end of the month, so this week. And we have award nominations for Epic as well. Engineer of the Year, Operator of the Year, Manufacturer's Rep and Distributor, Podcast Guest, among many others that we're going to be highlighting. One of my favorites, Social Media Marketer of the Year. We like to just highlight the people that are doing amazing things so that there are other opportunities for our future generation to know that it's possible, and our current generation that is serving in the workforce to be inspired and highlighted and thanked for all the great work that they're doing. So with that note, I'm going to swap over to Empowering Women. 2022 is the hashtag. The early bird registration is open. We are approaching deadlines for the award nominations at the end of the month there. Again, wonderful categories for engineers, operators, tradeswomen of the year. So check that out. I'd love to hear, if we have any engineers out there or anyone in STEM. We definitely have a STEM category too. And that really leads me to our industry interview. What an interview. Aisha Lawrey, who is a STEM advocate. She has 25 years experience in this journey. She is working with government, nonprofits, education, and just so many different stakeholders out there to amplify the STEM fields. She's trying to, focus on increasing women and minorities in engineering specifically. She is an engineer by trade, and she works today at Amazon Web Services. She has had so many different lead roles. And we can just go into so much there. But her main platform there is to be an advocate. And I am inspired by her and all that she's done. So without further delay, here's your interview. Welcome, Aisha. I'm so glad to get this opportunity to talk to you today for the Empowering Industry Podcast. I know you're doing a lot of things all around the globe, and I just want you to kind of start with telling us your story, kind of who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. So, yes, my name is Aisha Lawrey. So my background is in electrical engineering, but I have had a funny kind of journey. So when I was younger, I had no idea what engineering was, let alone they didn't even use the term STEM. So that was just very foreign to me. I knew that I loved to talk and I was more inclined to math and science. And it just, during that time just came very naturally to me and always did really well in school. So, at a young age, especially in middle school, when people start to ask questions in terms of what do you want to be when you grow up? What career do you want to have? So I said a lawyer. because I like to talk. And like I said, and also my mom watched a lot of law shows in the 80s. So all of the women were glamorous and they carried a briefcase. And if remember during that time, like if you carried a briefcase, you were someone important, right? So I was like, I want to be someone important and I want to wear beautiful clothes. And although many of the women I saw did not look exactly like me, I knew that, okay, this is kind of the model of what, my goal is of what I want to do, right? So from the time of being in sixth grade until probably my junior year of high school, that's what I said I wanted to do. People would ask me. And then in high school, I joined a debate team. So, I got a little bit more of it and I was like, I like this. So
yes,
that goes really well with, going into law. But it really wasn't until one of my math teachers, my geometry teacher, asked me if I knew what engineering was. And I had no idea. And I was also in some other clubs, the Science Olympiad and Math Decathlon. And she was the advisor for those clubs. And she said, I look and see you and how you, try to figure out problems. And, you really have a good way of analyzing things. And so, I wanted to see if you knew what engineering was, because I think you would be a great engineer. And I was like, wow, I have no idea what an engineer. I was like, all right, I have no idea. So, of course, that time, no Google, right? So I had to actually go to the library and I wanted to just find out more about engineering. And then I found out that there were all these different disciplines and it wasn't just you became an engineer, right? And that's it. So in the process of doing that, I also went to my guidance counselor, talked to him to find out if he had more information, and he did not. He said, well, you do really well in math and science, so you should be a math teacher or a science teacher. And I was like, that's it? That's all you have for me?
That's not engineering. That's not what I asked you.
Yeah, that's not engineering. And he was clueless as to really what engineering was as well. And I said, you're the guidance counselor? So, I did more research and went back to my teacher to ask her if, there were additional, things that I could do to find out more about some of the specific disciplines. And she was doing some teaching at a university that wasn't far from our high school on the weekends, and asked my parents if I could go with her, and she would set up times for me to speak with some faculty in the different disciplines. So, it was really awesome. The university was only 30 minutes away from where, I was born and raised, but I had never heard of this university. It was a private university. And it was in a city called Hoboken, right? I'd never heard of this city, although it was like a train ride away from where I lived. But when I got into Hoboken, I felt like, wow, this is like a utopia. Like the streets are so clean and it's a small little town. But when I went to university and she set me up with the faculty, all of them were men. Right. None of them looked like me in terms of, none of them were African American. So none of them were women. Right. But the thing that really got me was only one of the faculty, who was the professor of electrical engineering, actually brought a hands-on project. The other ones just kind of talked about their disciplines, and for me sitting and listening, there were some things that I could kind of understand, but for the most part, it felt like Charlie Brown, right? It was like, wah, wah, wah. And I'm sitting there listening like, okay, okay. But the electrical engineering professor, he brought a traffic stoplight, right? So I thought that was so interesting because at this time I'm learning how to drive, and that's all you see, right? You have to pay attention to traffic lights. And he also told me, no matter where you go in the world, at least every town has at least one traffic light, right?
Yep.
So
yep. That's my small town. And one traffic light was it. And they're so much bigger too, right? Than what you think.
They're so much bigger. So I thought that was so interesting how he really just made something that you see on a regular basis so relatable. And he talked to me about the computer programming that went into it. He talked to me about the circuitry that went into it. And I was just fascinated because I was like, wow, I never really paid attention into how much technology really goes into making sure that people are safe, right? That they don't have accidents and don't crash, and how the timing is so important so people know when to go and when to slow down and when to stop. And that is how I decided to be an electrical engineer. It was really from that specific hands-on project that he showed me that I said, this is really cool. I love this technology. I want to study it and be able to do something like this that really is going to help society and impact the world. And
isn't that something that, you were with that teacher who just like ignited that little fire with you? So it's like I hear a lot of stories where that happens, and you kind of really don't know what you're going to do at that age, right? And it's just like somebody takes interest in you and directs you in the right, for other opportunities, right? It could have been anything that you ended up with, but she just made you think a little bit outside the box.
Yes. And she really did, because I really had no idea. And it was from that moment on that I said, I'm going to be an electrical engineer. And I remember coming home after that visit and telling my parents, and neither one of my parents went to college. So, like I'm first gen. So they were just like, okay. They
get it, girl. You got it. Whatever you think.
They had no idea, you have parents who are just like, whatever you want to do, I'm going to support you, even if I have no clue and don't understand. Right. So they were, all for it. And I remember writing in my yearbook, when, you have to fill out what you want to be and what you want to do. And so I put in there, like, I will be an electrical engineer. So sometimes, like, when I look at the yearbook now, I'm like, this girl in high school had no clue, but she actually did accomplish this goal of becoming an electrical engineer. So, that always makes me feel like, wow, I really did accomplish that, even though I had no idea what that really
was
meant
at the time. Yeah.
I had no idea.
And I think your story is so great. And thank you for sharing it, because I think it leads to why you're so passionate about helping this next generation of engineers and STEM in general, that you're a role model for them. And you're active in so many different groups, but can you tell us a little bit about how you're supporting that next generation?
Yeah. So, just like what you just said, not having that exposure to role models. And again, even understanding what engineering was, to even have that term, to even speak it, I think is so important. And that is why I'm so passionate about it, because I didn't see that in my community and communities like mine growing up. So I really feel, that it is my responsibility to, as I'm in a position to be able to go back to my community and communities like that, to talk about, STEM, right? To talk about all of the opportunities that exists for them. And when I'm talking to students, I tell them, as much as I would love you all to be engineers or, mathematicians and scientists and technologists, one of the things that I really make sure to leave them with is I just really want you to have the awareness, right? The knowledge. Even if this is something you don't want to do, but if you have the opportunities right, in your hand, you can make so many different decisions for yourself. And that really is the key, to be able to have those opportunities and to be able to make those decisions. And so that is why I'm really passionate about it. I also like to talk to the students about making sure that they're doing something that they love. And so I like to make connections with, talking to them about, what is it that you like? Do you like to cook? Well, did you know that there's food science? And, there's a lot of research. And many of them have no clue, just
Right.
Even talking to them, like, have you ever seen an apple, right? And it's really shiny. Well, there are chemicals that go on that apple to make it really shiny. And the food scientists study that, right? To make sure that those chemicals that go on there are safe. And just giving them, different examples. If, maybe there are girls or even boys, in the class who talk about the fact that they're interested in understanding fragrances, right? And shampoos and hair dyes and laundry detergent, I say that's chemical engineering, right? So, even for your clothes, if you hear there are stain resistant clothes, there are chemicals that are put on your clothes where, if you spill something, it'll just roll off as opposed to stay, in your fabric. And so these are things that, many of them are unaware of and have not heard about. And so the fact that, I can talk to them and give them different examples and show them how everyday things are connected to STEM and all of the opportunities that they can think about pursuing, it really gets me excited. Even if it's just one kid that just says, wow, right, during the presentation, like I had no idea. I feel like I've made an impact. And so being able to not only have that as my passion, but, when I decided to pivot from practicing engineering and really focus on, being a STEM advocate and go into STEM education, it has really become my profession. And the ability to combine, my passion and my personal life with my profession is, just the greatest job for me. And I wake up every day, just love what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think, you may have learned a lot as you were, trying to become this lawyer and debating and just diving into that and like refining how to talk to people to be an advocate, right? And all those examples gave you that experience, and I just love it. And I know that you're focused on it all the time, so I'm curious of just like what's missing, what do we need to do next, what do we need to build for our students, what is out there in your mind that we need to change?
Well, one of the things that, I'm constantly talking about, and I've seen some, baby steps in this area, but I think that, more really needs to be done is really the messaging that goes behind STEM, right? So what is the messaging that we're putting out in terms of the media for students to understand just all of the awesomeness that, having a career in STEM really provides to them. And that is, whether it's television, radio, social media, which is huge for students, we really need to be putting out things where they're attracted to it, right? And finding ways to meet them where they are so that they can be connected to it. And I think, like I said, I've seen baby steps happening, but I think that so much more needs to be done. Even in terms of companies, right? Companies have a huge sphere of influence, right? I think that companies, need to do more with understanding that not only should they be reaching out to, that entry level talent that's coming from college, but they need to go all the way down to K to 12, right? If you start planting those seeds and you get students engaged and interested, you never know what is going to flourish, right, from those seeds. And so I've even seen some companies that now have different arms in terms of STEM education within their organizations. But I think more companies need to get on board and really need to understand, right? Because there are so many jobs and roles where they're not being filled. And they're not being filled because, we need more of that talent to fill them. And we cannot just expect that talking to a junior in high school like myself or a senior is always going to produce that next engineer or that next scientist or mathematician or technologist. So when you start with K to 12 and you're able to expose them through, like I said, TV and movies and show them all of these things, you never know how that really can impact them. So I think that, we really need to do a better job of having that messaging and then showing them the different connections. Like I said, even in terms of if they're interested in teaching, right? One of the things and examples that I love to give, and I wish more people would show these examples to students, is how, with a degree in STEM, many of the foundations can jump into any careers, right? So engineers and scientists can jump into education. They can jump into law. They can jump into medicine. But not many of the other careers have the opportunity, right, to jump into engineering. And so making those connections for them and saying, if you want to be a lawyer, there's patent law. and you have that opportunity. And many of the CEOs, of these Fortune 500 companies all have some foundation within STEM, right? So giving them that context for them to walk away with, I think is so important. And then, many of the students, especially now that I talk to, want to do something that's going to impact society, right? And that's one of the things that, sparked and inspired me. But showing them how much, STEM and being in these fields really does make an impact on society, and they're really helping people. So I think we need to do more of that messaging to make sure that that comes across to students.
I love it. And I love that call out to our companies that are listening to this podcast too. We have lots of industry that can absolutely get into those schools. So hopefully that they will take your advice and do more of that, which, it makes me think you when you say STEM, and then there's STEAM, which is including the arts. And
Yes.
I love the arts, and I think of all the different things that you can do now. And I can't talk to you without seeing your 3D image. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, you have been scanned, your likeness has been scanned, and how did you get started with that? What was that about? And do you kind of see that as a part of the arts as well?
Yes. Oh my goodness. What an awesome experience. So, someone had actually reached out to me to tell me that there was a call for applications of women in STEM to be a part of this ambassadorship. So, it is a joint partnership with AAAS and also the If Then initiative, where they wanted to really find women in STEM from all walks of life to be a part of this ambassadorship to inspire not only young girls, but also women who are early in their careers, for them to continue to be empowered, and think about, as a young girl pursuing a career in STEM. And so you had to go through an application process. And to be very honest, I actually debated, like back and forth, like, am I worthy enough to apply? Like, should I apply? Should I not apply? And there were 2 rounds. In the first round, I didn't even apply because I had a lot of, which many of us do, the imposter syndrome. And I had some, doubt, like, will I even be considered? I have no idea who these other women are, but I'm sure that they're going to be looking for these just awesome, women who have, done all these super awesome things. And like, do I
And
count?
they found one. And they found one.
I'm like, do I count in this category? So the first round, I did not even apply. And I debated some more. And on the last day of the deadline, I just decided, and I was talking to my husband, and he said, would you just apply already? Would you just apply already? And it's the same thing. He said, we tell our kids, you never know if you don't take a chance. And I said, oh, you're going to put that on me, huh? You're going to shoot me back my own words to the kids. And it worked. So I did apply, and they wound up selecting about 120 women from thousands of applications that they received. The other thing that I love about what they did was the selection committee. Not only was it made up of other, STEM professionals, but they also had a girls' council of young girls who actually sat in, and they also got to read some of our statements, and they got to give their opinion as to which women they wanted to see. So I thought that that was really impactful, because you are having, these young girls have a say as to who they think. And that's, one of the things about meeting them where they are, letting them be at the table, right? Just because they're younger doesn't mean their voice shouldn't be heard. And so
well, you've got me tearing up over here, because I just see those girls participating, and of course they're going to pick you because you have the passion for helping them, and it comes, raining through your submission, I'm sure. And I just like, oh, what a blessing. And just, I know that's powerful for you to keep,
it
going
was
forward.
really powerful. And the other powerful thing about it was when all 120 of us got together, we had some of the same feelings of imposter syndrome and self-doubt, and we were just looking like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here with you, and what am I doing here with you, and you're so awesome, and you're so awesome. So we were just doing that when we all got to meet. And the funder, Lyda Hill, I mean, she's phenomenal. For her to have this idea that I really want to be able to recognize women in STEM, and then to go a step further. And something that many of us as the ambassadors were unaware of was just the small percentage. But when you think about it, it wasn't really surprising, right? But the small percentage of women who do have statues in the country, right? And there were only 6% of women who have statues in the country, you know, especially if you think about some of the major cities, and you think about LA and New York and DC and, you know, California and Atlanta. You think about some of these major cities where you would think at least, you know, they would have a little bit more. And that wasn't the case. So, you know, her goal was to be able to, you know, 3D print all of us and to have the largest number of women statues in one place. And we were totally unaware until we got together in 2019. And she surprised us and said, we're going to scan you all and make you 3D printed live statues. And I mean, people were crying, and it was just such a moment, you know, for all of us. And what a message, right? What a message that sends to, you know, not only just little girls, right, but little boys as well, and women and men, that, you know, this is something that is important. And when we actually were able to see them for ourselves, and we saw them in the garden, it just became even more real, the impact that it had, and having people ask questions and wanting to learn more. I was like, who would have ever thought that, you know, people would want to take a picture with me and ask more about my journey and what I did, you know, and be so interested in it. So that was a really powerful, you know, opportunity. And the messaging was also so important, you know, for it to get out there. And the way that, you know, even the media picked it up, and it's been in newspapers, and, you know, it was on the news and in magazines. I think that that is a step as a part of what I was talking about in terms of messaging and how to get it out there.
Yeah. And it is phenomenal. Like, I hope everybody, and we'll link to it and just share where they can see it. But I think it's phenomenal that, you know, it is telling people, all people, that women are out there. They are in STEM. They are already doing this. You can be a part of this. And even, you know, I find my middle schoolers, you know, they don't really understand this because they think anybody can be anything. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's just not the case in a lot of our stories. We didn't even know it existed. And so how do we then teach our children if we didn't know it existed in that That's pathway? Right. So your story is so important that you've shared it, that they picked you. What a wonderful surprise. And of course it had to be 3D printed. I mean, we're talking about STEM here. So yes. That is wonderful. Well, okay. Well, is there anything else? I mean, we could talk for days. I'm already so inspired by you, and just leave our listeners with something else.
Yeah. So one of the things I would really like to say is, you know, as a part of my work and working at AWS, Amazon Web Services. So as the head of global education programs, I really have the ability to help to make an impact, right? In terms of what the technology is and what we're doing and how we can really translate that to the younger generation. So again, just being able to have my job be a part of my passion is what I love doing. And when I'm talking to companies, and you companies who are listening out there, you know, this is really important. I really get a lot of feedback from companies just saying that they're struggling, right, with really trying to fill positions as a result of the IT skills gap. So the IT skills gap is big, it's real, and it's getting bigger year over year. So we really need to make sure that we're reaching, that early career talent as early as K to 12 to make sure that we can fill these roles and how we're able to get them excited about technology. When I talk to students and ask them, do they know about the cloud? Many of them are like, I have no idea. And I say, if you have a cell phone, then it is imperative for you to at least have some understanding of the cloud, because that's where all your data is, right? And so just get some knowledge and some awareness. And those are some of the things that we're doing within our education programs for K to 12 to give them knowledge and understanding about what the cloud is, how it impacts them. And then not only that, we have an overall goal to really be able to help 29 million people by 2025 to really get them trained and skilled, right? And some of these cloud, roles for these opportunities. And so that means for people, even grown-ups, even grown people who want to get this awareness and this information, maybe they want to get reskilled, maybe they want to get upskilled, right? There are so many opportunities for that. And we're doing it not only so that we can fill roles at AWS, but so that we can help all employers, help them to fill their roles that they're looking for as well. So that's what I would just love to, kind of leave, that it's never too early. You can start very young. And then there are people out there who, have no awareness and maybe want to switch careers and still need some of this upskilling and reskilling. That is really the way to go to be able to kind of help to close this IT skills gap.
Wonderful, wonderful. So many opportunities. And, I didn't even think about it. We just take that for granted, the cloud, and just like we took for granted engineering. We need to actually teach them what these skills are. And I'm just thankful that you're bringing this to our attention. And if anybody wants to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's Aisha Lawrey. If you just put in my name, you will absolutely find me. You'll see my picture. You can see my bright, colorful hair. So you can't miss me. My contact information in terms of my email is there as well. But my personal email is aishakenya@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out to me, whether you're a company, whether you're a student, K to 12, whether you're an educator, whether you're someone in higher education. My goal is to really be able to be accessible and to really be able to help. And so again, this is not only my profession, but it is my personal passion.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. I've had such a just joy. You've inspired me. I can accomplish the day for sure today. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody. That brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for listening. Do us a favor and subscribe, rate and review the podcast. We love the 5 stars. If you want, you can mention us at Empowering Pumps or using that hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. You can also email us. I was going to say Charli at Empowering Pumps. Absolutely. But also podcast at Empowering Pumps. And we'll be back next time with a new episode. So until then, be empowering. That was a little more fun. Hope y'all have a great week and a great weekend coming up.